Shwmai a croeso cynnes, and welcome to the What's Your Story podcast. I'm James Owen, a Welsh filmmaker and storyteller, and I'm passionate about sharing stories. This podcast is all about business owners sharing their journey, and we'll be speaking with directors, entrepreneurs and creatives from all across Wales to learn from their experiences. We believe everyone has a story to tell. What's your story? Shwmai a croeso cynnes to the next instalment of What's Your Story. And over the last couple of weeks, we've had the running theme of people from Llanelli. And I'm quite proud to welcome another fellow Llanelli resident. It is Miss Katie Nurse, Katie Williams. What is your name, Katie?
I don't know. What is it? Katie Nurse currently. Well, on my marriage certificate, Katie Williams, but I go by Katie Nurse right now.
But you are Mrs. Williams, right? You did get married.
I did get married in December, just gone.
Woo, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Happily married?
I think so.
Is Debbie watching?
Yeah, I know. Got to say that right. Yeah, no, loving it. First year, almost done. That sounds bad, doesn't it?
Now, Katie is somebody who works in the HR industry, or better known as people. I think the HR term has developed, and what somebody does in HR has changed over the years. But you now run your own consultancy, which is new and exciting. So can you just tell all the listeners and the viewers, in 2 or 3 sentences, who you are and what you're up to currently?
Yes, I'll try and keep it to 3. So I'm Katie Nurse, we think. I work in HR. I've been in HR for about 13 years. Been in the games industry for about 7 years. Currently working as a people director for a game studio, which I love, and I do that most of my time, 4 days a week. But on the side, I'm doing a people consultancy as well, which we've been building in the background for about a year. And working predominantly with small game studios and with creative tech companies as well.
And you can quite often find you in coffee shops.
Yes, working, obviously. Yeah,
obviously.
Because I work remotely and I'm on my laptop. But yes, working. I'm a people person, as you know. You've known me for a little while, James. And you know, working remotely has amazing benefits, but I do miss that people face-to-face interaction. So yeah, I will have to get out a couple of times through the week just to see people and have a chat. Yeah.
That's good. No, it wasn't all people and HR growing up, because you wanted, or you had a dream to be an actress.
I did, a long time ago, a lifetime ago.
How did that work out?
Well.
Did you get the part?
Well, no, exactly. No, I didn't. I made a change of direction. But yes, back in Gosainon College, when I went there many moons ago, I wanted to do acting. And I said to my parents, I want to be an actor. And they said, okay, let's be sensible. Let's get 3 A-levels at least. And then you can go on and do your acting thing. So I got my A-levels in history, geography and drama studies. Then did a BTEC in acting. Thought it was what I wanted to do. Got into a place in London to do drama studies. The acting stuff, I mean, so many auditions, so many rejections, and I just thought, I'm not sure if this is the life for me. But I got into a university to do drama studies in London, and then I had cold feet, and I just thought, actually, I don't think this is something that I want to do. Did a complete U-turn. I was due to go in the September, this was the August. I sat my parents down, I was like, I'm not going to London anymore, and I'm not going to study drama. I'm actually going to go to Swansea University and do geography. And everyone was like, okay, where has this come from? So it was. And
you loved geography when you were in school?
It was something I was always good at. I did enjoy it, but obviously through college years, I didn't show up to a lot of lectures, I would say. And it got to the point where my lecturer was like, I might have to start phoning home because you're just not coming to lessons. But I said to her, well, I'm going to be an actress. I don't really need to come to these lessons. So don't worry, it's fine. I'll do what I need to do. But, luckily I got an A in my A-level in geography. And I think my lecturer was, jaw on the floor. Don't know how. But so I did well at it and I did enjoy it. But it was, I wouldn't say it was a passion or anything like that. But yeah, so I thought I had my mind on acting. That's what I wanted to do. Then I realised it's not what I wanted to do. And I actually thought, well, geography is something I seem to be naturally good at. I seem to be doing well in it. I'll do that at university. So then I was phoning my lecturer up. I was like, I know I didn't really come to your classes, but any chance you could be a reference for me, because I'm going to try and do geography in Swansea University. And again, she was like, oh, you've taken me on a journey. But yes, of course. So I actually went through clearing, because obviously all the spaces had gone. But because I'd already had my A-levels the year before, because I then did an acting BTEC, so I was a year later going to university. But I managed to get in, which was amazing. And actually had, really nice halls and everything, seeing as it was so last minute. And I went down the human geography route. So did my dissertation more in the human geography area, which is, about population movements, political geography, social geography. So that was really interesting. And yeah, I enjoyed my degree.
Good. So fast forward your degree then. Did you end up working in the field? Did you want to go into teaching? What was life like after you graduated?
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do with the degree, but actually, at the time of graduating, I saw a job being advertised just for like an archiving assistant in a local construction civil engineering company. It was like a 3-month graduate summer placement.
Sounds exciting.
I know, right? Scanning documents and saving them on file in a room that had no windows. Yeah, it was my first taste of office life. But yeah, so I did that, and it was, I thought, it's a job in an office. It's helping me, because it's so hard sometimes. People are without a job for ages after coming out of university. But I got lucky, and it was supposed to be a really short-term job. So there I was, like, scanning my documents, and the HR manager, who's a standalone role, she said, oh, well, actually, if you've got some spare time once you've stopped doing your archiving stuff, I've got a few bits of HR that you could do. I didn't really know what HR was, and I didn't know exactly, what she wanted me to do, but I was going into her office and helping her with a few HR admin bits. And then I was coming to the end of my 3-month archiving assistant role, and she said, actually, I think I need a full-time HR assistant, because the company was growing. And she said, I'm going to advertise it, but I really would like you to apply. So I applied for it, got the job. And that was my first HR role back in 2012 in Swansea. And I stayed there for about 2 years. And just so happened, my best friend Rachel also got a HR job in a company around the corner. So we'd meet up for lunch, which was nice. And
did she want to be an actress as well?
No, but she did dabble in it, I would say. Yeah. But no, she was in the HR space. And we both, we were like, oh, are we going to stay in Llanelli forever? Like, what's our plan? We thought, oh, maybe we'll go traveling to Australia and just, go somewhere else and, just try living somewhere else for a change. But at this point, we were kind of used to earning money, and, at the time, we were actually really lucky to have HR roles, because I knew people who had graduated with HR degrees and actually weren't finding work. So I thought, I'm actually really fortunate to be in this position. I don't want to give up on this journey I've just started. So we both decided, right, let's move to London. I think we can progress quite quickly there. And then, yeah, really luckily we got jobs at the same time, moved to London at the same time, lived together. So my first HR job in London was in a company called Publicis Group. So they are a company that own a lot of other smaller companies, like creative, advertising, marketing. So they own Saatchi & Saatchi and Procter & Gamble and that kind of thing. And it was more of a HR shared services type of role. So people would outsource their HR. So I would do a lot of their paperwork, essentially. It's like contracts for new people, promotion letters, benefits, payroll, that kind of thing. So that was, and I was there for a couple of years in my first job in London. But as I was getting to know the field of HR, I felt, well, actually, I want it to be more people-focused than transactional and paperwork, essentially. So I wanted to find a role where I was face-to-face with people, really getting involved in the company and the business, knowing, the direction, the strategy. Because actually, in Publicis Group, we weren't even in the same building as a lot of these people. So we were sat in a completely different location, never met the employees, just transactional, really. So anyway, so I started looking and I found a job at Macmillan Cancer Support. So I went into the charity sector. And yeah, even though it's a charity, it's, huge, obviously one of the UK's biggest charities, very corporate in terms of how it's set up. So I started there as a HR coordinator, I think it was. And that's essentially where I progressed in my HR career. So I had 2 really amazing managers that, gave me loads of exposure, mentored me, did loads of great stuff, took me into meetings, and I progressed really quickly from HR coordinator to advisor, and then to change advisor, and then to HR business partner. But essentially, a lot of the work that I was doing there was change projects, so restructures, redundancies, not the nice side of HR. So it was great learning, and from the legal sense and process sense, like it was all very interesting, but actually delivering those conversations of making people redundant and day after day, week after week, it got a bit intense. And yeah, it was kind of the negative side of HR then, I guess, but I still learnt loads there. And then after experiencing working in a really big company, there was like 2,500-3,000 employees at Macmillan, I thought, I don't think this kind of size of organisation is for me. Like, I do feel like quite a creative person at heart, and I want to be in maybe a smaller, more creative studio type of thing, but I wasn't sure what was out there. Anyway, so I came across Us2 Games, which is a mobile game studio, and they're tied to, the parent company is Us2, which is a really, prestigious design studio in the UK and globally. They had studios, in lots of different places. And I somehow ended up getting the head of people role there. And I was friends with a couple of designers at the time, and they were like, I can't believe you're working at Us2. And I was like, I've actually never heard of them before, but this sounds good. And once I looked into them, I was like, oh, wow, yeah, they're doing really well. And they've got, they were building apps for all sorts of huge companies. So the Us2 design side was, app development. Actually, they did Joe Wicks's body coach app. So I met Pete Wicks. Well, I didn't meet him. I saw him, close proximity, came into the office once. So they were doing really well on the design front, and then they actually created a game called Monument Valley, which did way better than what they were expecting and brought in lots of money, and they obviously had a separate game studio. So I was brought in as the head of people for that game studio, which was based in South London.
Wow. So a girl from Llanelli is now head of people. It's pretty cool. At
a very successful game studio. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, and I didn't realize at the time how lucky I was. Even now looking back, I go, because I've been in the games industry now for 7 years. I go to lots of different events and networking things. And when I say I worked at Us2 Games, everyone was like, "Wow, what was it like to work there?" It's really held in high regard. So.
Good. Oh, that's amazing to hear. And so you've worked in, different industries. You've worked in somewhere very corporate. You've then worked in third sector, which you've said was kind of corporate. And I guess for you were missing the people element of HR.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like I've had experience in the transactional paperwork, that contract, your bread and butter kind of stuff in the first place, which was great. Then I had the change experience, restructures, redundancies in Macmillan, which was, again, not the nice stuff, but really useful stuff to have. And then I thought, I want my role to be quite broad, but touching, more on the people element, more involved in culture, well-being, diversity and inclusion initiatives, as well as obviously all the recruitment, all of the performance reviews, like basically, the standalone role. I wanted to be a standalone role, touching all parts of HR and really having that people element and knowing people by their first names and knowing their situations and things. Like, I wanted to work in that smaller company.
And how can small businesses really recognise and encourage to get the best out of their people? Because my perception of HR would be, oh, HR, really? Okay, that's bad news. They're going to talk give me a disciplinary or I don't know. To me, it's got a bit of a bad perception, whereas it's changing now to be people services. Like you've got people directors, head of people services. It's changed. HR is still HR, right? But the terminology and the language is shifting, and now it's culture is a responsibility in people, whereas it's never really been the case. So how can small businesses really just get the best out of their people?
Well, that's a great question, and like there's a lot of different ways you can do it. I think, especially if you work in a creative studio, which is where I've worked, and because in the games industry, obviously you've got your AAA, you've got massive companies, and you have people who want to work there, and you have people who really don't want to work there, and they want to work in smaller game studios. Because they want that creative element, they want autonomy over their work, they want to be involved in the creative process, which happens in a smaller studio anyway. And then you get to touch a bit more. So I work with programmers who are also interested in design. So there'll be a bit more of a crossover. You're not so siloed in your roles, I guess. So, you can offer different routes of, T-shaped people, they call them. So, you can go in different directions, I think, in a smaller studio, and you can get different exposure. Like I know someone who started in quality assurance, but then went into production because they had exposure within the smaller studio. And, so you can offer maybe quicker development for people, quicker, kind of going up the career ladder, so to say, because they can have more exposure in a smaller studio. Depending how you're funded as well, like if you're a private company, there's some great benefits you can offer as well. So I've worked in game studios that have offered amazing benefits. So stuff like a 4-day week company, unlimited annual leave, which is awesome. And obviously I've had the benefits of these, which is great. Us Two Games, we offered 6 months paternity, which is kind of unheard of. 6 months full pay paternity.
That seems innovative to me. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but that's caring for people. Yeah,
exactly. That's it. And yeah, it's touching people personally, right? And people found it so valuable. We also had a length of service thing, which was if you reached 10 years, you'd get £10,000 and 10 weeks off full pay. Which sounds amazing and was a really good benefit, but actually what you found once people got to the 10 years...
they didn't come back to work.
Well, either that or they're quite high up and in quite a managerial role, and it's quite hard because it's 10 weeks, so you don't really get someone in to cover them, but they're out for 10 weeks, and it's like, how do we divvy up this work while this person's gone or whatever, but we made it work, and it was great, and people really value that, so...
Wow, okay, so a lot of perks, a lot of benefits. So it sounds like it's quite fun, but quite fruitful to work in the games industry.
Yes, 100%, yeah, because you're creating something together and you're putting it out into the world, and you're creating experiences for people, really, to, enjoy and play, and it's a really fun, creative place to be, but I would say... it's been a really tough place the last year as well. Like the games industry in general is quite volatile because, a lot of smaller studios are they've got investors, and investors can pull money at any time. So you could be working on a game for 2 years and then suddenly money's pulled and the game doesn't actually get released. So there's lots of highs and lows, and there's, at the moment there's lots of redundancies going on, especially over COVID. So you had a lot of people at home playing games, had a lot of spare time. So there was this big inflation of sales, so games skyrocketed during COVID, and they were like, right, we need to churn out more games, hire in more people to make these games, so everything grew really, really fast, and now it's actually sales have gone down a bit because obviously people are back in work and they're doing other things, they haven't got as much time to play games, so what you're finding out is the crash on the other side where teams need to downsize, there's lots of redundancies happening, so it's very volatile place to be right now. But I do think it's an industry that's been used to that as well. So I think when people have been made redundant or companies downsized, I do know a few people that then get together and create a new game studio and then kind of spin that up. So there's opportunities, but I can't downplay the kind of the hard times in the industry right now as well, I guess.
I think in creative industry, in my world, in film, in marketing, there is a lot of that downsizing, which is, a disadvantage maybe if you're trying to be a full service agency to offer lots of services.
Yeah.
However, there's opportunities for smaller people to have a bigger slice of the pie.
Yeah.
So where you may see that there is maybe a threat or having a bad time in the industry, there is opportunity for other people. So it's good to hear that despite it being difficult, because you're right, everyone was jumping on the bandwagon. I mean, home improvements during COVID went through the roof, right? Nobody's going on holiday, everyone's building a house. Great time to be a tradesman. Real good. But I think there's opportunity for the smaller indie game studios. And just here in Wales, I'm getting to learn about so many more people who set up game studios in Wales. Yeah. Which is mad to think.
Yeah, it's amazing, actually. And there's a lot of funding in the Welsh Government now as well to get people to games conferences. I was talking to someone a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot happening in the Welsh game space, which is great. And I think as well, maybe COVID has been a benefit to that, because you've got more remote working now as well. So you've got, people who can, just work from South Wales, which is what I do. I wouldn't have been able to do that pre-COVID, really. If in the type of space and company that I want to be in, if I hadn't been to London and actually then relocated and had the remote working, I don't think I'd be in this position now, really.
And do you think maybe 10, 15 years ago, what would people's attitudes, maybe parents and family, thinking that your parents were kind of like, do you really want to be an actress? Is that like the best thing for you? Maybe you should do something else. But imagine if you were to say to yourself 10, 15 years ago, could you have seen yourself working in the game industry? Because maybe 10, 15 years ago, there's this misconception that it's like, people playing games all day. What's all that about?
Yeah, and there's still that perception. I think, obviously, because I know it so well now, and I speak to a lot of people who are in the games industry, obviously, but there's a lot of people that I do still speak to. They're like, wow, I didn't know there were jobs in games. And I'm like, yeah, there's so many jobs in games. And and there's the HR business ops side as well as actually game development. Like you say, looking back, I would never have thought I was in the games industry. I've ended up here, and I feel like I was placed here as well because, predominantly the industry always has been white males, and I think there's a big piece of work, there's lots of good work going on to try and get more diversity into the games industry, but there's still a long way to go as well, and I'm trying to play my part in that. So I'm a Women in Games ambassador, so that's a support network for getting more women into games and keeping them there as well, because obviously once women reach a certain level, a certain time in life and maybe go off to have kids, you find a lot of those people don't return because maybe the games companies aren't that flexible or whatever. So I think there's a lot of work to do from a HR perspective. So it's an industry with a lot of opportunity, I would say.
Okay, so you spent many years in London.
Yes.
Working in the games. You've transitioned from working in Macmillan to getting a job in a humongous game studio, which you had no clue who they were, which is funny in itself.
Small studio, but lots of money, I would say.
Small studio, lots of money. Yeah. Good opportunity. How did you end up back in Llanelli?
So in January 2020, I'm trying to figure it, it's all a blur. January 2020, so I'd been in London for 6 years, and I went to my CEO at Us 2 Games at the time, and I said, I think I'm done with London. I was trying to future plan a little bit. I couldn't see myself there, for too much longer. Could never see myself having a family there. So I thought I wanted to move to Bristol because it's halfway, obviously, between London and Wales. Great spot. It's a lovely city. So I kind of suggested this, and at the time she was like, but your role is so people focused, we're not quite sure how that's going to work in practice, but also we don't want to lose you. So they were really nice, they were really flexible. So they said, let's do a 6-month trial period, you living in Bristol but coming into the office every 2 weeks or once or twice a month. So I moved to Bristol in March 2020, the week lockdown hit. In fact, I think it was the day that things shut down. I was supposed to move the week later, and my CEO just said, I think you need to move now or you're not going to be moving. So I was like, right, okay, I need to move. It was all a mad rush. Moved to Bristol. obviously my 6-month trial period of like traveling in didn't happen because everybody was remote. But the CEO was like, well, I guess working remotely works, which was great because we didn't really do it before then. You had the odd day working from home, but, you know, hardly any working from home. So, you know, there was a huge shift in terms of how we worked. And I think that was the same for a lot of companies. But yeah, so I lived in Bristol for 10 months, worked remotely. And then I thought, well, actually, because there was majority lockdown, I hardly met any people in Bristol. My flat was coming up for renewal, and I was like, well, I don't know what's happening next year. Maybe there'll be more lockdowns. I don't really want to be here with not knowing many people. So I decided to move back in December 2020. Oh, actually, sorry. I came back for a couple of weeks over Christmas. And then I happened to meet my husband. So I guess... I know. I guess COVID made me move back to Llanelli, but my husband kind of made me stay. Obviously, I wanted to stay. Yeah, it was great. So, so I met my husband, who is from Llanelli, and we'd actually not really met before. Lots of mutual connections, but not really met. And we went for a walk over that Christmas, and...
You missed out the part where you slid in his DMs.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were going to ask, how did you meet then? Yeah. I did the approach of sliding into his Instagram DMs, and I had a message back, which was great, and the rest is history. So I went for that first walk with him, and I just thought he's the one for me. So I made a quick decision, and I rented a house in Llanelli for 6 months, and I just thought, we'll go with it. Hopefully everything will work out. And it did. But then it got to the point, well, obviously super happy personally. It was great to be back in Llanelli. I think when you're older as well, you appreciate it a lot more. Like, you know, and especially COVID, it was nice to get out for walks, and it was nice to have the space. And I think when I was younger, I couldn't wait to get out of Llanelli, but actually moving back, I see it in a whole new light now, which is great.
Llanelli's got a lot to offer, hasn't it?
It really has. And it's just getting better and better, I would say. So
good coffee.
Yeah, great coffee.
Nice places to go for walks.
Exactly, yeah. And I live by Swiss Res now as well, which is quite nice. So yeah, I get to go there on my lunch times.
So were you commuting then to London and back?
Yes. So the conversations were starting to happen, like, let's get people back into the studio, maybe even if it's for 2 days a week. But obviously I was back in South Wales, and I thought 2 days a week is a lot. So we were having lots of conversations, and so they did really try to keep me there. But at the same time, I got presented an opportunity by my friend who had actually started her own games company, and they were at a point where they wanted a people director. So she said, come and work with us. We're a 4-day working week. We're completely remote. And I just thought, the timing's great. They were a startup. It was a bit risky, but at this point, you know, kind of used to working with startups, and, you know, I kind of like that risky nature, I guess. So I thought, we'll go with it. So then I started working at a company called Tailwind, which makes games on the Roblox platform. So I was there for 2 years, maybe. Got pregnant, got made redundant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
While you were pregnant?
When I was on maternity leave. So they were really great. They had a great maternity policy. So I had, so I was on maternity leave. I was due back to work in the November, and in the September, I got told, actually, we are going to have to make some cuts, and you're one of those people. So, yeah. But, you know, I knew the founders really well. In fact, we'd known each other before I'd worked with them. We'd known each other for a couple of years. And you know, in the role I was in, I was aware of obviously the financial situation and privy to a lot of conversations. So it wasn't a huge shock, but it was sad because it was a great company and I enjoyed working then. Actually, I was looking forward. I know a lot of people maybe don't want to return after maternity leave, but I was like really itching to go back. And I find a lot of purpose in what I do. I love working. And I love my role in particular, like there, and I enjoy making money, I enjoy spending money. So I was like, what am I going to do? So obviously my husband was super understanding. He was like, you don't have to rush into anything, but I put a lot of pressure on myself. I was like, no, I really, because it was towards the end of the year as well. We were getting married in the December. There was a lot going on, but I didn't want to go into the new year not really having a plan. So, you know, people say redundancy is redirection. I've actually said that to people in the past, and I'm sorry for that because it sounds really cheesy. But I thought, right, okay, it is also true. Like, it does make you stop and think, like, what do I want to do next? Forces you into a position that maybe you wouldn't have gone down for a while.
And it must have felt a bit strange because you were the person who would, have those redundancy conversations, and then it's flipped on its head where you're being made redundant.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got to say, silver lining, or, if there's some positives, I'm glad I have been through it, because I will have to have those conversations as a HR person. There's going to be more of those redundancy conversations coming up over the years. And I feel like I can just understand it a bit better now because I've actually been through it myself.
More empathetic.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Obviously I tried to do it as nicely as possible before, but there's just a whole new meaning and understanding to it now, I guess. It was a sad time, I guess. And yeah, I was thinking, what am I going to do now? And I've always, the last couple of years I've been thinking about the HR consultancy route. I know a couple of people who have moved into that area, and I thought, maybe now is the time. Spoke to a few people and they said, you should go for it. Like, I think it would be really worthwhile. And it just feels like it was a response to what was going on in the market as well, because there was lots of redundancies going on in the games industry. It felt, and small studios that maybe needed to make redundancies but don't have the HR support. It's like they've got a flexible HR support with this consultancy to say, hey, could you come in and help me do this conversation as best I can, or do this process as best I can, so they can pull us in for any kind of tricky situations or any sort of process or anything like that. But it's also a more flexible approach to HR as well, I would say, because, there's a lot of roles in the games industry that are project-based. You bring contractors in for, audio designers, narrative designers, that kind of thing. You bring them in as and when you need them. And I just feel like actually you could do that with HR as well. Like, you could have HR on a retainer for whenever you need them. Because I think there's an old kind of thought process there, you need HR to be full-time and permanent, but actually I think there's a more flexible approach that's needed to it, and that's what that's what started this consultancy idea. But I feel like I've gone on a tangent, but there's two things. So the funny thing is, my co-founder of the consultancy, which is called the People Co, my co-founder is actually the person that made me redundant on maternity leave.
That sounds like a joke.
I know it's not. It's our story though. That's okay.
That's an interesting story in a pub.
It's an interesting story. We laugh about it now.
That's good.
Yeah. Because the thing is, we met in 2019. She was an operations manager of a game studio. I was obviously a head of people at another game studio, and HR and ops, work very closely together. And we were in standalone roles. And this was 2019, and we thought, we met and we got along really well, and we thought, why isn't there more of this kind of collaboration and networking from a HR point of view in the games industry? And there's a lot of small studios that have standalone HR people. Let's try and create a network for them. So we actually created this HR network within the games industry. And so that was 2019. It's still going now. We've got about 150 people in it, which is great. And, it's just somewhere people can come, share knowledge, learn, meet up. So we do quarterly meetups and different training and resource sharing and that kind of stuff. So we were already running this network. Then I worked with her at the game studio, and we've just got a really good synergy, and we complement each other because she's the operations side. So she's obviously owned her own business, but she does the finance, the studio ops, that kind of stuff. Then she is CIPD qualified, same as me as well. So she's definitely got the HR experience. But then I've got the kind of the years of HR behind me, I guess. Like, I've got 13 years HR experience. So it felt like actually this is a service we could provide to small game studios, the HR and ops side of things, and a flexible approach, as I said. So we've been working on that in the background, but we've both had jobs at the same time. So I'm a people director of another game studio now. I was super lucky. I got a job basically 4 weeks after I got made redundant. So whilst I was thinking about this consultancy stuff, this job came my way and actually was too good to say no to. And I love working there. The people are amazing, and I feel really attached to it. So I'm still working there, but we've been doing the consultancy stuff, building the stuff on the side. And Gina, my co-founder, is actually in a position now to take it on further because she's going to step into it full time.
Exciting.
Which is very exciting. And that's the plan for me, hopefully, towards the end of next year. But yeah, it's all very exciting.
Does your current employer know that?
No, I know, oh gosh, don't be watching. No, he does, he's aware. He's so supportive. He actually believes everybody should have a side hustle. Like, he's got that entrepreneurial spirit, and he can see that in me, I think, as well. So, he's very supportive. In fact, he's been like, I know a couple of founders that maybe I can introduce you to.
So he's already getting you business.
I know, right? Yeah. He said that a couple of months ago. I have to remind him, but yeah.
Follow up.
Yeah, exactly. But so it's all kind of early stages of own company and that kind of stuff. But
so as if like formally launched as a business, is this like a pre-revenue idea? How does it exist as a structure?
So it's all set up and ready to go. We are revamping the website right now, but we're having talks. There's people interested, which is great. So like we've had discovery calls, and some people are like, we really feel there's a need for this in the market, like a flexible HR approach within the game studio, games industry, but also within like creative industries as well. Because a lot of founders that I speak to in the creative industry, they're like, we don't want corporate HR. We don't, you want someone who's people focused, solution focused, who can be dynamic, who can change as projects change. And it feels like there's a big need for it right now. So it's exciting. Yeah, there's a few things lined up.
So very experienced in gaming,
yes,
but you don't want to totally have such a niche where you're not exploring other opportunities. So creative industry is something you want to target as well as gaming. Yeah,
exactly. I think it's early days, so we don't want to close any doors right now. And I think, we do a lot of the work remotely. We are predominantly remote, but I'd love to do a bit more with game studios in Wales, for example, where I can meet them face-to-face, because I do love that face-to-face interaction as well. So I think it opens the doors for that.
Yeah, because is it possible to work with people or work in HR but be totally remote? Is it possible?
It's possible because I do it. It is possible. I do think the face-to-face element is really important though. So as long as you can maybe get those in 2 or 3 times a year even, like they come around really quickly. I think once you've met someone face-to-face, I think it really deepens that relationship, and then you could go 6 months and, work together. But I think meeting at least once or twice a year would be great.
So that's on the basis of meeting them. But say now you never met someone.
Yes.
You're a company that operates completely remotely. You don't have a Christmas party.
Yeah.
You don't have a celebration of when the business existed, an anniversary. Is that still possible to do people well?
Yeah, so again, I do that currently. We've got some employees who are not based in the UK. I've never met them, but I've got really good relationships with them. And actually, as well, you're looking at maybe Gen Z coming into the workforce now as well, right? So they actually prefer to do instant messaging rather than face-to-face. So, hey, this is the way it's going.
No, Katie, no. Is it actually?
It is, yes. So there's two sides. So Gen Z, there was a survey I saw a couple of weeks ago, because as well we've got an aging population in Britain, in the UK. You've got a multi-generational workforce. So you've got people who are 65, you've got people that are 18, potentially all working in the same company. So you've got all your different generations. And they did a survey on how people prefer to communicate. So you've got your baby boomers who are like...
So what are you? Are you a millennial?
I'm a millennial.
I think I might be a millennial. Maybe just got there.
So millennials are 27 to 44, I believe, years old.
Well, I'm 29, so...
Okay, so you're in the millennial.
Camp.
Yeah, okay, we're both millennials.
I'm a millennial.
And then so you've got your baby boomers, you've got your Gen X, you've got your millennials, and you've got your Gen Z. Right, okay. So all those generations are in the workforce at the moment. So they did a survey of how do these people like to communicate. Baby boomers, face-to-face, or phone call. They're just like, let's just pick up the phone, let's just talk.
That's me.
It's a bit of me as well, right, actually.
Yeah. I hate emails.
Do you?
Oh, I hate them.
I do prefer a quick call. Just let's get it done. But there are a lot of people who do not like that. That's not their preference. So Gen Z, so this survey came out. It said Gen Z, their preference would be to, before a phone call, to be messaged to say, heads up, you're going to have a phone call, or actually just do it via DM, Slack or whatever. So I think the way we are in this world right now is like, face-to-face is important, but there's also, things have moved on as well. And especially when you look at the gaming industry, like, there's so many online gaming communities where people connect. I know people who have connected through a gaming community online, never met before, and invited each other to their weddings.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can build meaningful relationships online.
It is possible.
Yeah.
I had my accountant Lloyd. He came on here last week. I think he's coming on the podcast, which will be released soon. Now Lloyd, I met back in 2020. So I met him through work. Got an opportunity to get to meet him, and I thought, right, I was in a position where I needed an accountant, and there was just something about him just clicked. Right, I need some advice, and he's been my accountant ever since.
Oh wow!
And 4 years ago, I saw him last face to face.
No way.
I felt like we'd been mates for years and years and years. We'd had Zoom calls, we'd speak, I'd send him voice memos on WhatsApp and things like that. And it's just bizarre because when we sing goodbye to each other, I was like, but heck, Lloyd, I haven't seen you in 4 years. That's mad.
Yeah. So it does happen.
Good opportunities. Okay, so I think there is definitely a need for that consultancy, because like someone like myself, I think sometimes you could think, oh, well, I don't qualify for HR advice because I need to have 30 staff for it, but that's not really true.
Yeah.
So there is a space for consultancy.
Yeah.
So I think you've hit a nice niche.
Yeah.
And I like the sound of the idea and the people core, because you care about people.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's exciting to see where all that goes.
Oh, thank you.
Question I want to ask you. You jumped from, working in London. You sort of had that opportunity maybe to move to Bristol, and then lockdown was all ahead of you. But it was a risk. So jumping from the city life in London, was it worth the risk?
100%. I'm living my best life.
Living your best life.
Yeah. No, it's great. I'm close to family. Obviously, I've got a son now, and childcare is amazing, and I've got a really good work-life balance. Like, I'm probably more career-driven than ever right now, but I feel like I'm finding a balance in every area of my life. Love the walks down by the beach, and I see Llanelli as my base, but I still travel to London for work, and I still, travel to different places in the UK as well. But nothing quite beats Llanelli, eh?
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, and if anyone's listening or watching, I've got big links in the creative industry. I'm in lots of different creative networks. How can maybe the People Course support maybe those who need some advice with staff or HR?
So we're very flexible. So we can do like a one-off call, give some advice in terms of like a situation. Or we can come in, set up processes, policies, different things, like, values. We can really start from day one. And I speak to a lot of founders, and they always say, I wish we'd brought in the people team sooner, because it's really hard to go back once you've started doing things. Like you said, you don't need to be 30 employees, you can be 5. Because there's still management to happen, there's still career progression, and what we like to say is we can help companies scale successfully, but also we can, there's going to be different levels of support, I guess, like in terms of, there's your bog standard 5 people, we can keep that ticking over, but also we provide recruitment and talent planning and all that kind of stuff. But so there's lots of different things we can do. Helping with probation processes, and especially with the new legislation coming on the 26th of October, which is unfair dismissal starts from day 1 rather than 2 years, which is something some people don't know. I mean, hopefully you'll be doing it, like hopefully people have been doing things in the right way anyway, but from day 1, it just means you're going to have to be hotter on probation now. And I think as founders, I speak and work with a lot of founders, and they say they feel like they can take it on, the people stuff. It's like, oh, it's just an extra one person, extra 2 people, extra 3 people. But actually that does come with, taking up your time on certain things. So it's like, let us come in and do all the people side. You can focus on the business, the product, the making the money the side, and we can focus on the people management and the people, looking after the people. So, it doesn't matter how many employees you are, but, our bag is working with small companies between 5 to 50 people. So
wow, that's good. And if I've got a dispute to my director, can you help me out with that?
Yes, come and talk to me later.
Confidential though.
Yeah, always.
No, that's good. I love working with my wife. She's cool. Good. Okay. Well, this podcast is all about stories, and I'd love to hear from you, Katie. Who is maybe someone that's very inspirational, maybe influential? Could be in the gaming industry. Could be somebody fictional that, not fictional, but someone that isn't around anymore. Whose story would you love to hear?
Okay, so 2 people come to mind.
I only have
Am I
one.
allowed? Okay.
Come on then, give me 2.
One?
Come on.
I'll give you my first one, right?
Okay.
Which is my serious answer. Anne Borden, who is the founder and CEO of Starling
Bank. From Swansea, isn't she?
From Bonamine in Swansea.
Bonamine?
Yes.
Ali Wayne Jones is from there.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Gosh, lots of people coming out of
filmed
Bonamine.
Fangirl. Okay, Anne, yeah.
So I think she's really inspiring. I think she sold her house to actually pay employees. I'm sure I read that somewhere when she was first starting off. And she's the first woman founder of a UK bank, which is great. So, and wow. She's Welsh. So, I'd love to hear her story. And then the other person is Miss Rachel.
I know Rachel Osborne.
Not that Rachel, no. So Miss Rachel is a YouTube star, mainly for toddlers. But she is my son's hero right now.
Really?
She blew up during COVID, I think, because obviously there weren't baby groups going on. And she is a trained music teacher, I think, and she started doing YouTube videos. She's exploded. I can't believe you haven't heard of her. But her net worth is now like $8 million, I think. So I would just love to know her story about like going from 0 to 10 in terms of fame, money, everything. I think it's an interesting story to listen to.
2 very different people.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Anne sounds cool. I'd love to have Anne on the podcast.
I'm sure you can
if
make
you know
that
her,
work. I don't, but we'll see. There might be connections somewhere.
Who knows?
Yeah.
If anyone wants to know more about the People Core, the People Network, how can they find out more? How can they contact Mrs. Williams?
I was going to say, so my name on LinkedIn is Katie Nurse.
Not Williams.
Not Williams. People can, look for me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you, Katie. Thank you for coming on. Great to hear of another story of a Llanelli business owner. And there's just something about people leaving Llanelli. They always come back. And there's no better place than Llanelli, I find.
Yeah, I agree.
So thanks for coming on. Diolch yn fawr. And hopefully that those listening, if they've got any needs that they can help in their industry or in their business, that you can help them in some way. And thanks for coming on, and great to hear your story, Katie. Diolch.
Thank you so much, James.